Mugs. So we're 9 mugs in. We're gonna get thrown. I think I've got 15 more to do tonight. So crank, listen to some music, make some pottery. Hopefully have some little kind of AMR-y kind of experience. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. So get you guys set up. And we're actually gonna grab a few more bats before we get into it. Okay, we're gonna get going. Got like 15 mugs to throw, so we're gonna crank through these. If you guys have any questions about the process, let me know in the comments below. Had some technical difficulties, so some people may be jumping back in. My evenings these days is throwing, making pottery, making artwork, and what we're doing right now, these are my meditation mugs. So I do just stylistically very angular work. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like brutalist, desert brutalist, modern, but also very like kind of ancient feeling, and I like that combination, that like brutalism, that kind of indigenous vibe, just deserty Southwest vibe, all kinds of different stuff. So what makes them the meditation mugs is I'll put some carvings on the outside of it. They give a really tactile experience. And yeah, just encourages people to like slow down and be aware of what they're drinking. Coffee, tea, whatever else, whiskey, I'm not one to judge. But whatever your ritual is, these are the mugs for it. I know I can show how to not make pottery. So sorry, it's hard for me to read the screen, but while throwing. But I can walk you through the steps of throwing once we get this one done. It's definitely, pottery's one of those art forms that it's just like all about time behind the wheel. There's not really a good way to like shortcut it. What am I doing? But I think at this point, I've thrown at least 1,000 pots over a couple of years. I was thinking about this when I was coming in tonight to the studio, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw like a bag of clay, which is 25 pounds, 15-inch mugs. And when I was starting out, when I was starting out at pottery, I would throw, a bag a month, and now I'm throwing like a bag in 2 hours. But that's just getting quicker at it. It takes everyone fails and flames their first time, I promise. Especially when you're on the wheel. The wheel is one of those things where you have to really practice at it, and you also have to learn your clay. So the clay that I'm using tonight is Laguna Electric Brown, which is my personal favorite. I tried about 12 different clays, I think, and just found the ones that I liked. It was funny yesterday because I was working on some stuff for a wood fire kiln, and the wood fire kiln white clays tend to look really nice, because they pick up a lot of the flame effects. But that meant I had to use white clay, which is very porcelain heavy, and I do not like throwing porcelain. It's such an unforgiving medium. versus this is stoneware, which has a lot more grog, a lot more texture to it. A lot more grog, a lot more texture in it, and is a lot more forgiving. You can see I'm kind of manhandling these. At this point, we are at 10. Let's see if I can show you guys. So that's what we got going, and I've got one more board. There we go. Get you back at the wheel. Got one more board of balls wedged up. So we'll be making 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 24 mugs tonight is the goal. Let's put up the next pottery. Yeah, so I have definitely used wild clay before. I really enjoy wild clay. The only really big downside to it is it's a lot more temperamental to work with and is a lot of work to gather and process. And so from a commercial potter standpoint where, you know, I gotta make a living at this, it's just not a viable situation. Clay costs typically about a little over $1 a pound right now. And for me to process a pound of clay, you know, it takes a lot of manual effort, a lot of time, a lot of fermentation. With these, I am firing them in an electric kiln that I run off of solar, with wild clay, I'm firing these in a electric kiln, which I could fire wild clay in an electric kiln, but it's so temperamental, and you have to do so much testing and so much work to make sure it's going to work out correctly. Every clay source is going to be a little bit different, so every clay is going to fire to a different temperature. Every clay is going to react to glazes differently. And then my biggest thing is, since I do mostly functional wares, so food safe stuff, I, especially around here, I'm not super confident in not poisoning people using wild clay. So the only time I do use wild clay is if it's not going to be functional ware. Commercial clay is fine. I do like the honesty, I guess, that comes with wild clays, and just that primitive pottery I love. So I'm hoping at some point, we're still building out this business and trying to just scrape by right now, but I'm hoping to get to the point where I can start offering primitive pottery workshops that is not so much about learning pottery and becoming a potter, but just that ancestral connection to the land. Every culture basically every culture, I don't want to say every single one, so there were a few exceptions, but pretty much every culture had a pottery tradition. And so no matter where your heritage is from, all that kind of stuff, there's pottery in your lineage somewhere, which is pretty cool. And I like connecting people back with that idea. But for tonight, we're using commercial clays. I do make my own glazes, which is exciting. But yeah, it's fun stuff. I always tell people pottery is the perfect ADHD hobby, because if you get bored with the technical side, you can go into the art side, you can go into chemistry, you can go into material sciences, you can go into a million different aspects, and I definitely do that with my work. So this swirl came out perfect on that one. That's going to be a good mug. I'll show you guys real quick. So I'm using a bat system that I actually made myself with the laser cutter. So get the water out. There you go. Look at that. Pretty swirl. So that swirl will help kind of catch some of the glaze and do some interesting breaks. Simple clay I found a lot around my area. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, every pottery culture. Commercial clay is a new thing in the world. If you're looking for clays, typically like around rivers or old rivers, old lake beds typically are a good place to find clay. There's different ways that you can test to make sure that they're good. So you'll do a plasticity test. Let me see. So this is just my scrap bin. And this is going to be a commercial clay. So you can tell that it's, it's doing what it's supposed to do. Not all clays do this. But, yeah, 1 second. So you can kind of do a plasticity test. So you'll kind of make a coil, and you can see how this is holding together really, really well. If you have clays that are crumbling, that's probably not going to be a very good clay to work with. The other thing is like a wrap test. So you see that wraps around my finger really easily. So that's a good indication if your wild clay is going to be usable. So mix it with a little bit of Arizona Road. I'm not familiar with Arizona Road specifically. I'm down in kind of the Tombstone area. Yeah, different tests. You typically also want to process the wild clay, so you'll mix them with, it's like 80% sand or 80% clay, 20% sand. If you pit fire stuff, which I definitely enjoy doing pit fire out here, we'll just go down to the wash and build a little temporary pit kiln. That can be a great way of firing if you're not doing food wear, functional wear stuff, and not have a kiln. Like literally people think pottery has to be expensive, and it is. I've got, at this point, I had to upgrade my solar and stuff to run my kiln and all kinds of stuff, but Native Americans, pretty much every culture has done pottery for free for thousands and thousands of years. So dig up some clay, play with it. I can shout out to Andy Ward's channel. I think it's called Ancient Pottery or something like that. He does some really great tutorials and lessons and educational content around working with wild clay. If you're in the Arizona area too, Tucson-ish area, he does in-person workshops. I've taken a couple of his stuff, and we actually went out and dug clay with him, and just good dude. So Ancient Pottery, I think is what it is, Andy Ward, up north near Grand Canyon. Okay, cool. I've been up there, but I haven't explored that area a ton regarding ceramics. But yeah, in general, anywhere where Native Americans made pottery, there's probably going to be good clay around, because they would often kind of make their settlements around what they needed. So pottery, food sources, water sources, things like that. We're kind of in, I think it's the Toto'oam and Mimbres and Hokum were the big pottery cultures down here in southern Arizona. So we're at 11 to 12. Yeah, once you get good at it, again, it's just hundreds of hours on the wheel, but you can see I'm cranking these out every couple minutes. These will still need to get handled, trimmed. There's several fired twice. There's a lot of steps that go into it. But it's funny, the throwing phase, it's like you feel like a champion at the end of the night because you made 30 pots in 2 hours, but then you gotta realize you gotta place and handle and trim and do all the other steps of firing them twice, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't actually do that much. So I'm typically I'll sponge these out, but I don't want to mess up that swirl, so I'm dumping them to make sure that the water doesn't just dissolve my pot overnight. I do like to throw in the evenings because then I can let them get to a leather hard stage overnight, which makes them a lot easier to work on once they've dried up a little bit. And then they'll get handled, they'll get trimmed and handled tomorrow morning. There he is. Yeah, the handling process. So I've been on like a 2-year quest of handling. And I do pulled handles, which is like one of the most difficult ways to do it, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, with pulled handles is a extremely difficult skill to learn. But once you learn the skill, it goes really quick and you can make some really nice things. And at least in my opinion, the pulled handles are going to be the most natural because they're actually made with your hand, not an extruder or a tool or anything like that. So I'm still not great at handles, to be honest. I'm definitely exponentially better than I was a year or so ago, but it's been at least 1,000 mugs that I've done to get to the point of like mostly competent when I'm throwing mugs. Or not throwing mugs, what am I doing? Putting on handles. So, yeah, it's all just practice. And if it's something that you enjoy, like, I really enjoy all the processes. I don't love loading kilns. That's the one thing that stresses me out a lot. And I don't like shipping work. I do ship work, but that stresses me out too. But all the other parts aren't too bad. I may do a live with me pulling handles because that's a very interesting motion. May get a bunch of views, but probably not in the best way. I don't know if any potters are in the group that know what I'm talking about. Oh, I get that too. I do. I've done some carpentry. I've built everything out on this homestead, so I know woodworking a little bit. Definitely not to the point of high-end stuff. And I can appreciate people that can do that really well, because that's, I mean, same as this. It takes years and years of practice and hundreds to thousands of pieces to get good at it. So woodworking is fun. I also do a lot of metalworking too. It's not my main gig, but probably clay is first and metal second, and probably wood is third. Just because being out in the desert, wood gets a little tricky. Long term, everything, sun roaches it and stuff. But yeah. Cool, we're at 13 mugs. I'm gonna get my other board. I told myself I was going to throw one 25-pound bag, and then I had a half bag, so now I'm throwing a bag and a half, so, like, I can't do that math, but, like 40 pounds tonight. And process-wise, I've got a bucket over here. Let's see if I can take you guys off and not shut down the video again like I did last time. So I have been doing pottery for about 2.5 years, going on 3. This summer will be 3 years since I took my first intro class. I started selling work in. Okay, gotta be careful here. Started selling work in October of 2024 is my first market. Last year was kind of my first year to really kind of make a good go at it, and ended up replacing about 25% of my income as just a side gig. This year I'm going full-time, hopefully. That's the plan, at least. And then just love it. Kind of my background is I've done computer work, marketing, graphic design for going on 20 years now, and that word's going away. So I'm learning how to do pottery. Show you what we've gotten tonight. So this is, I don't know, an hour or so of throwing. These are some mini pots that I love doing just because I like making the joke, hey, you want to buy a little pot? Um, so these guys are waiting to get fired. Let's see. These are ones that are still damp, and you can cover stuff with plastic, but I'm actually in you can't really see it outside, but I'm in a school bus that's buried. So these are kind of hardening up overnight. They'll get carved up tomorrow. This is basically how I do my mugs too. That tactile experience, once these are fired, that kind of gives like a nice little rough edge that you can run your finger across, and just kind of feels nice when you have your warm mug and that tactile experience. So all these guys will turn into that, but with handles and some cool glazes. What else can I show you? I'm waiting. I'm still got to throw those, but we'll get back to that. And lighting in here is not going to be great for this, but these are a few glazes that I made. Really liking that one right now, so that's what most of these are going to be, because I don't have any mugs like that. So with that, we're going to turn those into that. Let me get you guys set back up on the tripod. And try not to shut off the video again. There we go. So I tend to wedge up all my clay. Really important thing when you're doing production pottery is just to make sure that it is consistent weights. So you can see like those are all really pretty close to one another. They definitely are siblings, not twins, but I don't want to make perfect things, because if you want perfect things, go to Target, go to Walmart, go to the thrift store. My mugs will function essentially the same as a 25-cent mug from Goodwill, but so if you want a mug, go to Goodwill. If you want a piece of art that you can drink out of, that's where I'm your guy. So that's why with my mugs, I will kind of like let them be a little bit different all around. Bowls, things that need to nest, that's more important to get them like exact. And at that point, I'll set up a laser level, really weigh out my stuff, and just spend some more time on each piece, making sure it's like perfect and getting out the calipers and all that fun stuff. But for mugs, we just reform. My aunt used to roll out thin lines of clay. See natural hands for cups. I definitely see people do slab handles. There's a ton of different ways to do handles. A lot of people do like extruded ones. It's all personal preference. I'm biased towards pulled handles just because that's what I learned, and I spent so much time in so many mugs, hundreds of mugs, failing on these handles, that's my personal preference. But there's like the slab handles and there's extruder handles are a lot simpler to do. I'm just really stubborn and like to do things as hard as possible. So, yeah. It's all personal preference. And that's the cool thing too with ceramics, is like it's such this like once you get good at it, like amazing to crank these out in just a couple minutes a piece. You can make anything that you want. So like from a science standpoint, they actually use ceramics to coat spaceships when they're going through orbit, because it's the one thing that can actually handle that heat. And not fall apart. Like there's so many parts of our world that are just dirt, or just were dirt at one point, that are now functional, from taking millions and millions of year old dirt and then getting it up to the temperature of kind of the mantle of the earth, the inside of the earth, a volcano, and then it turns back into stone. And Some of the oldest pottery that exists in the world, I think, is 28,000 years old. And it's always cool and kind of humbling to me whenever I'm working on these things to think about, like, this mug here, there is a non-zero chance. It may not be likely, but it is a non-zero chance that this mug will exist 28,000 years from now. And that's kind of cool. I may need to be burying some of this in a cave somewhere. But, yeah, just kind of a cool thought process. And clay is just old stone that's been ground up, stuff that the earth made, and that I get the privilege of working with and turning into functional wear for y'all out there that enjoy this kind of stuff. Clay, the wheel does not always go this good. Having a particularly good throwing night tonight. So I may actually end up doing another bag, because, yeah, if I can keep this going, we're making money tonight. This is the first time I've done... since I got the full set made up of these bats. But I ended up buying a laser engraver. It was like $800. It was stupid expensive for my market signs. And these are brand new, shellacked on the edge. So bought a laser cutter for my market signs, and then I've got 20 plastic bats. So these are what I was using before, and they're great. They work fine, but these are like $5 a pop, and I've only got 20 of them. And as you can see, I've already done 14 mugs in an hour. So I was running out of those real quick. Didn't want to spend $1,000 on plastic. So I ended up making these bats, which are just 1/2-inch MDF board from Home Depot. Threw them on the laser cutter, and then they slot into this little bat system thing here. Just like that. And so it was about, I only used 2/3 of the sheet, and I ended up getting 40 bats and 2 carried systems, I guess, for like $45, and then $30 for the shellac to seal off the edges. But yeah, pretty happy with that. So let's see, we got 4, 8, 10 more bugs. Let me see, sorry. Never say never. I can say just might. I think anyone can get into this craft for sure. I think it's one of those things where you don't necessarily choose it, the clay chooses you, and you really have to have that dedication in building. My background in getting into clay was kind of by accident. So I was running the Homestead. If y'all are familiar with the channel at all, the homesteading journey and all of our crazy builds out here. I was hosting a bunch of basically 18 to late 20s people, working my ass off, working full-time, building full-time, teaching full-time, working 100 hours a week for 4 years. And really, I just needed a little bit of an opportunity to get off of the property. And so I started taking art classes at the community college, just for fun. Took a painting class. I used to be a watercolor painter, just for fun. And then started doing some sculpture work in the painting class because I can't follow directions. Really enjoyed 3D design stuff. Took a 3D class. Really enjoyed that sculpture class. We were doing all kinds of different mediums: wood, cardboard, plaster work, all kinds of stuff. So really enjoyed that. And then ceramics was just the only other 3D art form that they had at the college. So I took a class over the summer for fun. And 2.5 years later, and what is that, 8 semesters, something like that? No, 6. yeah, 6, 7, 8. I think I'm in my 8th semester at the college. Making a go at career transition right now. So, if you guys are enjoying watching this, enjoying this, I am Dirt Creature Pottery. Instagram. Right now we're Terraform on YouTube, but that'll be switching over here in the next couple months to Dirt Creature. And we'll be doing more videos on different, kind of combining the homestead mentality with also the pottery. So would like to get back into wild clay stuff for sure. That's, my heart is there. But it's really tough to make a living doing wild clay pottery, which is so unfortunate just because time is money. So, and I don't have unlimited funds. So we're doing commercial clay pottery for production work, but for video stuff, I may get into some more wild clay fun stuff. But yeah, we've got starting to post more regularly on doing shorts here. We've got the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the social medias, all kinds of fun. So, Lily and Keta and I made clay lamps, now over 100 years old. I have 2 for my parents. That's really cool. Yeah, again, clay's one of those things that lasts forever. And so if it's well taken care of, I actually found recently, I was at a like antique mall thrift store kind of place, and found these liquor bottles. It was really cool. I found 3 of them. One of them was from Amsterdam, one of them was from Germany, and one of them was from I think Great Britain or something like that. And they're really cool salt-fired bottles that said like prohibited for sale, da 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 da. But it was stuff that was basically pre-glass. Ceramics was a popular container form pre-glass, so these dated back to late 1800s, early 1900s, pre-prohibition in the United States. And it was just really cool because there was some of them where you could actually like see they were industrial stuff. So potters were doing exactly this. They were cranking stuff out a lot quicker than I'm doing now, because they were just industrial. They were, people treated them like you would a plastic bottle these days. But you could actually see the maker's fingerprints in some of them, where the clay, you kind of picked it up off the wheel and it got bumped, or there's little imperfections in it. And I lost my mind when I found those. I was so happy, and they're sitting in my house, because they tell such a story. And that was some person that was, was that 200 years ago now, 150 years ago. I can't do math. I went to art school. That made that, and now I get to enjoy it, and it's a piece of art, even though it was literally just utilitarian. They wanted their liquor. And now it's a piece of art, so I'm like, that's super cool with the lamps, and just, I don't know, stuff these days is not built to have heritage, and that bothers me a lot. So yeah, people jumping back in. We're getting this opened. We're doing some mugs and got this down to 3 pulls. So that's our first pull, is just to get it up. Second pull is for height. Third pull is for shape. If you do go and take a pottery class and you're not able to do this on your first class, don't get discouraged. This has taken me several thousand pots to get to this point. So from here I get my metal rib. Different people use different tools. That's the fun part about pottery, is you end up buying all the tools and then using 2. But I like my metal rib. And this is just giving me the shape that I want. And it's also taking off a lot of the slip, which is kind of the wet, really sloppy clay. It's going to help with the drying. And let me just get the room all nice. And there we go. We have mug 16. Cranking through these. Let's see what we get. So I'm gonna just throw for a little bit. If you guys have any questions, feel free to add them into chat here. Got another 10 more to go. No, 8 more to go. And we'll get these wrapped up. I may jump back in tomorrow when I'm trimming. Trimming is my favorite part because I feel like it's when the pot actually starts to get life. Right now they're crisp with the metal rib, but at least this clay, what I really like is the grog in it, which is it's sand or old pottery, a bunch of different things that kind of helps make it thermal resistant. That grog in this particular clay is white little speckles, and so whenever I trim, I'm kind of ripping those speckles out and bringing them to the surface versus having the slip on there, which is just going to give it a single kind of color finish. So trimming is going to let those white speckles, and it just gives a really cool effect on the surface when it's fired, because I leave a ton of raw clay. Glaze, to me, it's interesting. I think it can do some cool stuff, but I'm definitely a potter, not a glaze chemist. And so I like my clay, I like the raw clay, and like I mentioned before, these are intended to be very tactile pieces. And so that raw clay gives a nice, kind of rough sandpapery texture. Some people hate, but I really like it. A lot of people really like it, so doing the trimming is necessary to kind of get that effect that I want from a tactile perspective. I went out of order on that one. I shaped on pull 2. Do only get so many tries, or so many pots in an evening before the clay gods say that's enough, and they start throwing you off the wheel. So I haven't flopped one yet on live, which is good. But now that I said that, I'm totally gonna flop the next one. Very important to get the rim nice, because that's where your mouth goes, and not throw your tools across the room. How much power do I need to run pottery equipment? So the thing with that, so I'm 100% off-grid. I'm the only off-grid potter that I know of, and that is because running an electric kiln is a stupid amount of energy. So this last October, when was that, 4 or 5 months ago, is when I got my kiln set up. I ended up putting in about 12,000 watts worth of panels, solar panels. I have a 12,000 watt all-in-one inverter, and then I have 16,000 watts worth of battery storage. The wheel and running the studio and stuff like that is really not a lot. It's really just that kiln that takes up so much energy. I'm getting it dialed in. I've got probably 15-ish, 20-ish firings under my belt at this point. So the big thing is to run it. One, I have to run it on a sunny day. If there's a cloud in the sky, that's not going to happen. because my kiln pulls at its peak about 7,500 watts. And with a 12,000 watt system, like you're never getting 100% efficiency. So it's like 12,000 watts peaks at like 10. And that only really goes for like an hour or two during the peak of the day. So I'll start my firings depending if it's a bisque or if it's a glaze firing. Bisque firings I start about 6 a.m. Glaze firings I'll start about 7 a.m. or 5 a.m. Sorry, an hour earlier. And then that way, because the way the kilns work is they're kind of like, it's basically an oven, but it's not, there's not a high, medium, and low heat setting. It's just either on or off. And so at the beginning, while you're ramping your heat up, the kiln will click on for a second or two and then shut off for 30 seconds. And it'll click on for a second or two and then shut off, because you're slowly ramping your heat up so that way your ceramic stays safe. Ceramics does not like big temperature changes or drastic temperature changes. And then once it's getting to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, basically that kiln's on through the rest of the firing. So that's when it's pulling that 7,500 watts for several hours. My settings I've got dialed in so that I'm at about 8 hours to do a bisque firing, which is the first firing, and I'm about 11, right at 11 hours to get a glaze firing. I do have a backup like 3,000 watt generator that I'm mostly at this point am using on glaze firings. Bisque firing I can do this time of year fine with just the sun, but that 11 hours of fire time when we've only got like 7 hours of light in a day and only like an hour and a half of peak sun is just too much for my system right now. So I'll run that 3,000 watt generator for about 2 hours first thing in the morning to kind of top off the batteries when I'm doing a glaze firing. I'm hoping during the summer when we do have like a longer peak sun window that I won't have to use the generator at all. Considering getting a bigger kiln at some point, and at that point I would definitely have to up my solar panels because the kiln that I have is very, very small for a production style studio. But I put about $20,000 into solar to run this kiln and to get the studio functioning, and that's all I had. Because last year doing pottery I made $25,000, so we're at break even at this point, a year and a half in. So yeah, like I said, so pottery's, it's expensive to have your own studio. It's a expensive hobby or career to get into if you want to run your own studio from home. But there is other options. So like I said, I started selling work in October of 2024. And then I didn't have my own kiln until October of 2025. So for a year, I was firing completely at the college and using their resources. When I was doing some bigger orders and had to get things out that was outside of the pace of the college, I started firing at a city studio, where basically it was like $50 a kiln to fire, 30 or 40 pieces. And so definitely if you're interested in getting into this, especially from a hobby standpoint, not a full-scale artist standpoint, making a living standpoint, look at some of your local community colleges, public pottery studios, and most of them will rent kiln space. A lot of them have classes, they have wheels. The wheel's another expensive tool, so I'm using, it's a Brent wheel from, I think, the early 2000s. But these are, as this sits, this is probably a $1,500 wheel. I ended up finding it at a thrift store, beat to hell, for 75 bucks. Put about $400 into new components to get it running again, and then it's great. 20-year-old wheel. And it'll last another 20 years easily. So yeah, if you can kind of be slow with it, Facebook Marketplace, things like that, there's ways to get into it a little bit more inexpensively, but especially when you're just cutting your teeth and seeing if you like it, public studio is the way to go. But so we got it centered, we got it opened. Even though I've thrown a million pots, I tend to still like to take my needle tool and just double check. So that's a little bit thick for my floor, but I don't need to go down anymore here. I can go down as I'm like opening it up. So that pushing down as I'm opening up also helps compress the floor, which gets the clay particles all smooshed together so that they're less likely to crack. These MDF bats help too, because it kind of will release the piece when it should be released. I'm also finding I just moved my studio into this school bus, this underground bus, which is buried up to the windows, and that's actually been really nice because my previous studio was kind of a crappy old little camper that I got for free, and stuff would dry out really quick. Now I'm finding, at least this time of year, which this changes every 6 weeks, but right now, with the temperature overnight and the humidity and these will be really nice and ready to trim first thing tomorrow morning, which is great. Because timing is everything with pottery. So I've been happy with this new setup so far. I did just remember that I have a town day tomorrow, so maybe getting up very early to handle these. How's everyone doing? Is anyone watching me for an hour doing this? It's amazing. Starting to get to the point of the night where it's getting loopy, so it could be fun. It'd be fun to watch. 5 more, and then I'm gonna clean up and have dinner. Leave you guys. But be sure to go check out Dirt Creature Pottery is me on all the platforms. Here on YouTube, Terraform for now. I'll be switching over to Dirt Creature at some point. At this point, working on a website, so should be getting that up by the end of this month. I'll be at the Tucson Museum of Art show at the end of January, and these mugs will be there if you want to pick one up and you're in the Southern Arizona world. Let's see, what's the other question? Appreciate all the questions. Arizona Homestead. I'll have to pass on taking this out of scriptures. Sorry. Pass on taking on this habit. Oh, no worries. There's so the pottery studio that I will say it's a dangerous hobby to get into because yeah, I just took the first class for fun, and now I'm like $20,000 into this as a hobby and completely changed personalities and stuff like that. But I will say the majority of the college is people that are retired, so you would be in good company at most community colleges and pottery studios from an age standpoint. I'm 34, and I'm the only one in that studio that is in their 30s. everybody is either in their like 50s, 60s, 70s, or they're like 18 to like 22. So it's kind of funny that it's my whole life, is I'm the odd one out. Because I don't think 30-year-olds exist. I just don't. I don't know any. Don't see any in the world. They're all like in their careers with kids and stuff, and I'm just out here in the desert being weird. So. Alright, cranking through 4 more. It does always make me feel good on throwing days, because I'm like, wow, I just made like $1,000 worth of inventory. But again, not considering that this is going to take 10 times as long to complete all of these. And these will be, I think with my kiln I can fit about 15 mugs in at a time. I've also got like 25 bowls to put in the kiln. This one's lumpy. It's no problem. And so it's like, yeah, it's just, to get these fired is going to take 4 days of me not actively working, but like monitoring the kiln and keeping an eye on the solar and determining if I need to shut the generator on or off and stuff like that. So it can be it's a lot of work, but throwing days, again, I feel like I've accomplished a lot in a very short amount of time. I'd like to do a marathon day. The most pieces I think I made outside of mini pots, which those don't count. Actual pieces are like 80 pieces in a day. They were all spoon rests, which are still pretty easy. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun challenge. This one, even though this is straight out of the bag new clay, I can feel some lumps. So, you gotta adapt. You looking to get to age 100 or throw 100 pots? Both are admirable goals. Oh, no. Yep, I can definitely feel myself wearing down. I was also throwing earlier today those little mini pots and had a full computer day doing design work stuff. So we'll get there. 4 more. Love the swirl. Okay. So, get the swirl, we get our little volcano. First pull. Back and pull. Third pulls to shape. And then we get our rib to clean it up. This one's a little squattier, but that's okay. See, I didn't get quite as good of a gather at the bottom there. But no clay is wasted. All that clay is going into the reclaim bucket. And then once that bucket gets 3/4 of the way full, I just get a big, like, two-handed paddle mixer, mix it up, dry it out, and it turns back into usable clay. So that is what's called reclaim. Before clay is fired, it is infinitely recyclable, which is nice. I kind of feel like I price my stuff on the clay used, I guess. So all of my reclaim stuff, I'm like, ooh, this is free inventory. So each of these is losing maybe an ounce or so. I'm just trimming off. Okay, I need more bats. I'm glad I made my 45 bats. How much water do you use for your pottery? Honestly, not too much. And so over here, I've got a 5-gallon bucket. And I'll use that to kind of keep my hands clean. So we've got the 5-gallon bucket here. I've got a little throwing bucket here. And then corner over here, I've got a parts washer. So it's a 20-gallon parts washer that they use for like industrial, automotive kind of stuff. Maybe I need to go through more. And I just had that filled with water. And this is all new to me. This studio I just started building in January, so I'm kind of adding stuff as I go. But for the most part, like, you can really reuse a lot of the water. And then since I'm 100% on rainwater, yeah, I don't know, less than a gallon a day, I'm sure. Because that clay water sink, the parts washer, that I'll reuse. It's been 2-3 weeks and it's still totally fine. So yeah, glazing does take quite a bit. Cleanup of glazing takes, 2, 3, 4 gallons. I do try and mop in here at least once a week. That's a gallon or 2, but I would say it's not a significant amount. I feel my clay is starting to dry up too. It's been sitting out for an hour and a half, so combination of everything. Important when you're throwing, you want to use enough water to keep things moving and slick and friction down. But if you use too much water, then your clay gets really weak and is more likely to slump and fall over. This shape that I'm doing right now is not, I wouldn't say super dangerous, but it is a little bit dangerous in the sense that you have that kind of 45 out and then that 45 in. That 45 out has a tendency to want to flop over. So I've got it pretty well dialed in where I can control it with this clay, because this particular clay is very forgiving. But when I'm doing like I was saying earlier in this, did I lose my tool? I totally did. So what I was saying earlier is when I was working with the B-Mix, which is a heavy porcelain clay. Yeah, the shop figures are after me tonight. That wants to flop a lot more as well. Okay. Where did I put my straight grid? This is embarrassing. Oh, there we go. Sorry. He was hiding under the other bats. And I'm nice and wet up to the elbow. All right. There are 2 more to do, and then that's it for me tonight. If y'all have any more questions, feel free to throw them in that chat. Try and get to them. Or if y'all just want me to shut up and throw pots, that works for me too. Got a little aggressive with the pull on this one, so my rim's a little bit wobbly. When I do that, I can take my needle tool and just cut off a little rim like that. And that fixes that issue. Also, if I throw the rim too thin where it would be sharp or uncomfortable to use, I can do that as well. So, no big deal. One thing that was funny was this shape is kind of one of my original forms that I did a long time ago. And then I had a phase of switching to these really kind of tall, skinny mugs, almost like a travel tumbler vibe. And now I've switched back to short mugs because I could do the tall mugs when I was firing in a public studio because I had the right kiln size. But if I do the tall mugs now in my kiln, I can only fit like 10 mugs in versus like 15, 20 of these guys. So from an efficiency standpoint, they're the same ounces, I guess, of fluid, same ounces of clay, but the short little squatty mugs fit so much better in the kiln, so they're my go-to now. I still do take classes at the college for fun. Yeah, you're very welcome, Arizona Homestead. You have a wonderful day, and like I said, feel free to subscribe here, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Dirt Creature Pottery on those guys. This is my last mug of the night, and then I'm going to be calling it. So, well, oh, the last one wants to be difficult. There we go. Almost lost it. Be at the Tucson Museum of Art show at the end of February. Be at the La Encantada show in March, and then the Tucson Folk Music Festival in April. I also have a lot of posts on Facebook, Instagram, those things under Dirt Creature. If you see a mug you like, shoot me a note. I don't have a store yet, but I do ship individual pieces, so feel free to check those out. And thanks for hanging along. Thanks for commenting and giving me someone to chat with. These 20-something mugs flew by. I need to be doing more of these. It's usually just me alone out here on the homestead. Let's see, we're gonna go strong. I don't want one to flop. I don't want, he wants to flop. So, tell my body's getting tired. But we're fighting it. We're gonna have a perfect run. It's a little wonky. I always tell people at markets, like, this one's a little off center. I'm like, yep, that one's double now because it's one of a kind. For my legs. So we're going to cut the rim off here, needle tool. And I just put one finger on the inside, stabilize the needle with my thumb, and push it slowly. And then I don't want those sharp edges, so I just come in with my fingers. Here we go. I did like 12, 16, 20, 24 months. Not bad. I have to trim and handle all these tomorrow morning and have to leave early, so that's going to be really fun. But give me 1 second, I'll show you guys what we have accomplished tonight while I get cleaned up. There we go. So, thank you guys for joining me on this first ever pottery live stream. I hope it was helpful and entertaining. So this is a fun part. There's water in the bottom of this. Clip it. Clip it. And we're good to go. Don't trick it like that though. So there we go. We have 24 mugs thrown. There we go. So 24 mugs thrown. This was the work for tonight. There we go. So, see, pretty good consistency-wise. I'm happy with that. I've got a bunch of mini mugs that I threw earlier today. These will turn into these guys. You can see this is my new stamp for 2026. So this year we're doing the quail feet. So a little quail print. And yeah, these are basically the tiny versions of what these will be. Plus these will have a handle. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me. I am going to call it a night and get the studio cleaned up. If you want one of these mugs, come visit me at the Tucson Museum of Art show at the end of February, or shoot me a message on any of the platforms. Dirt Creature Pottery, got a lot of stuff. Working on getting an online store, working on getting a website, working on being a legitimate artist. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.